So, this is a question that I had somebody ask me. I thought, well, this ought to be a fun little, quick little video. But no, your people never, ever stop getting upset. They cry, whine, and cry all the time. But weirdly enough, they're really easy to make happy. All you gotta do is answer their questions. And you see how some of them are public opinion goes up. And if some of these are pretty obvious, like, I'll support and help. I'll do this. I will it's always that. And if you say, oh, I'll do it. And da 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 da. Yes. Yes. Blah, blah, blah. All right. And then you get it up to 100. You'll notice that these are always constantly going up and down all the time. Now you may be thinking, well, why do I care? Well, if you notice your approval rating, okay, if it's worse or less, you're passively going to lose, basically resources, right? Weirdly enough. And they mail them every day. So it's just passive resource gain, but it's negligible after a certain point. In the early game, it's incredibly important. But late game, it's almost beyond negligible because you'll almost do all of your gathering by gathering. You're not going to bother with the whims of the production of your buildings. The production of your buildings are very, very, very tiny in the grand scheme of what you can gather out there. And so for that reason, a lot of people don't really even sweat it. This said, that's not to say you shouldn't ignore your production buildings in the early game, but something that I have heard people ask is, should I be rushing these buildings or should I be focusing on my gathering? And if you want my honest opinion on this, I feel as though in the early game, it actually makes more sense to go down the economy path and go only up until about this part of the tree. After that, you can stop. Like, there's not really any reason to go all the way to the bottom on the econ tree. Now, on the growth tree, that's a different conversation. Like, I think you could very conceivably work your way all the way to the bottom in the growth tree. That without much thought at all, that's probably not a bad idea. And the battle tree is the same way. This is the bread and butter of what makes basically your account what it is. So in every way you should be doing this if you aren't already doing it. But on that same token, you may also be kind of asking, well, all right, so let's say I'm in the early game and I've done all this, but maybe I dumped some of my stuff on the wrong heroes. What do I do? I picked the wrong ones, I upgraded the wrong ones, or what have you. It's not that big of a deal. Like, in the grand scheme of things, you're going to want them upgraded anyway, sooner or later. So if you did the wrong ones, it's not really that big of a deal. You just have to, then, knowing that going forward, you want to obviously transition to where you'll eventually get the stuff that you need, into the right heroes. But one thing that people often complain about is the level. Now, what a lot of people in the early game don't realize is that eventually you get something called drill camp. Now, if you don't know what drill camp is, basically what that does is when you have a team that have hit level 80, you can just pick a hero that's at level 1, for example, and get this. I can hit OK, boom, immediate level 80 up until a certain number. So you'll notice I've got, up until a certain number, then I can upgrade up to 80. Right? But the idea is that it allows you to basically get the benefit of the level out of the way without actually using the XP to do it. So there's obviously that factor involved in it. Now, of course, let's say, you want to upgrade Rena. Well, you can do that up until, a certain level. I'll go ahead and upgrade just to kind of show you what I mean. Now, by doing that, I'm also able to do part of this event. So I'm getting some resources and stats and what have you. And I don't really particularly care in this type of scenario. But something you'll also eventually get around to doing is saving these for state of power and such. But, again, that's just stuff that you do on a day-to-day basis. You don't really have to sweat it too much. I would just tell you that, if anything, if you're working on leveling the heroes, the main thing that comes with heroes in general is the books. A lot of that's all tied to, VIP level, for one thing, is a pretty crucial bit, because when you get to, VIP 12, which is not an easy feat, most people know this, but when you get there, then you're getting 6 shards a day and 2 books. making it almost completely brainless to do anything otherwise. I mean, you can pretty much sit on the VIP bundle, and then you can even gem your VIP time so it runs on its own, and it's almost indefinite. Like, you don't have to really worry about it any longer. It becomes less of a problem, which is why people are looking at me and wondering, like, why is it that you don't really go crazy on, I had people ask, well, are you spending or are you the answer is no. Like, I don't have to if I don't want to, because to be honest with you, at this point of the game, you really don't necessarily need it, because you're not really going to make yourself any better, per se, against the people that are already spending tens of thousands of dollars. Like, I'm not trying to be the best in my server, and I'm not going to be the best against other servers. I just need to be decent enough to be able to participate, join, and set rallies. That's it. And that's about all you really need. That said, one of the things that I'm tweaking, though, is, I'm still working on the sets themselves, and then I'm also working on my chief gear. These are the only things you really can control, and you can gradually save what you get in your Sunfire tokens and then upgrade your furnace level. And it's a lot easier to get your furnace level upgraded than it is to actually do the War Academy. Like, by and far, this is going to be the most difficult tree to go through, just because of how many you need in order to be able to upgrade through the tree, plus of all the steel you need. It's more of a late game thing, if anything. I would say you probably do it when the furnace is done. And getting to the furnace completion is not an easy feat. Like, it's not going to be super easy to get there anyway. And that's why I say, even in the early game, really what you ought to be doing every day is just go into the lighthouse and make sure you're doing your intel missions. And like, even now, I've got gathers out, so I don't really have anything to do. But you also might notice I've got nearly 10,000 stamina. You may be wondering, what are you doing with 10,000 stamina? And once again, I'm going to stress the fact that when you have a bank of stamina like I do, which if you're wondering how exactly did I get a bank of stamina, I go to the storehouse and I pick up the 120 in the storehouse every day, and have been doing this consistently every day for a very long time. And what you can do is, if you go out and grab the VIP, which is inside the store, and you go over to something called the monthly card, and you want to grab the ultra value monthly card, if you grab this, you get an ability that allows you to auto hunt, which is to allow you basically to run 3 marches automatically without having to necessarily watch it. And then you can do another 3 on your own, and so you basically maximize your amount that you gain during events like, well, like, for example, like, I know the Thanksgiving event is coming, so you guys are definitely going to want to be prepared for that. For that reason, I've been banking on food and timber and ore and stone and everything, because you're going to need it in order to basically build, and like in my case, I've been building up speed ups, been building up a ton of stuff. Like, I've been basically stacking. And this is because ultimately what I do plan to do eventually, guys, is, we'll go back to playing in war, but war is expensive. And to do war and do war effectively, you gotta save. Like, that, I think, is just kind of a no-brainer way of going about playing this kind of game, because that's how you can manage to wield a pretty hefty war price and not worry so much about the cost of it, and that's, to me, I think that's the way to do it. Of course, if you go into arena, rank up in arena, what you can do and basically grab those coins that you can get, whatever tokens that you can fetch. What I do is I basically go out and I grab essence stones. For a long time, I was grabbing mythic hero chests when I was starting out. You can get mithril, which will help you when you're upgrading them up to legendary, which I actually haven't gotten all of them done, so I probably will have to start picking up mithril here pretty soon, because, one of the reasons I'm bringing this up is, so you see how they're all red? Like, to get one of these to go to red, I've got to get this upgraded to where it will go red. And to do that isn't not an easy feat. Like, it takes a while to get all the way over there. So I've still got a lot of pieces of gear that I need to work on. And so for that reason, I'm probably either going to have to go through and pick up mithril in the arena shop. And then what I would probably recommend people do is, you're either going to need a gem for enhancement components like I'm going to start doing, and just grab those. And then basically you'll also want to pick up, like in here in the shop, I always pick up pretty much all of the polishing solution and then whatever's left into alloy. And then for the foundry shop, that's going to be where I'm going to pick up a large chunk of my enhancement XP components. That's where I'm going to get the rest of them at, I think. It's going to be in the foundry shop. In State of Power, I'm using that strictly for fire crystals. And I save or stack my tokens if I don't have them, because that to me is a really good source of fire crystal, especially if we end up winning. It's a really good source for that. Inside of Canyon, I'm kind of torn. I haven't really made my mind up on what I'd rather have, but to be honest with you, it probably will end up being enhancement XP, because again, that to me is where the focus is, and that's where I'm like really going now. Like right now we have Alliance, and this is relatively straightforward, man. Like this stuff here, you just go out, find the enemy trucks and raid them, and of course you're going to get different speed ups and rewards, and you can there's always varying different degrees of people that you can attack, so you've got many different choices. The main thing here though is you want to rank and trying to rank for your team, so you always want to make sure you're doing whatever you can for the event, hence why I'm gathering, because a lot of those points, for every 100 iron I'm getting 2 points, and at 700k that's that's a fair number of points, but anything like that during the Alliance Showdown event, that's ultimately what you want to be doing. But in any case, like anything, guys, I would say with State of Power coming to a close, which, of course, my state didn't end up winning, it ended up being 452. We got state transfer going on, which, again, one of the things that I did have somebody ask me about was kind of like what the power caps are. So, like here, the state transfer power cap is 300 mil. I just conveniently happen to be over the cap in some places. So it's like I'm just on the edge of it. It's kind of funny how that works, right? Like I'm just close enough to the edge that I'm not yet 300 mil, but you can see how close I am. I'm not going to transfer though, but it's just so that's just something for perspective, that like that is one of those things that you don't think much about, but believe me, it matters in the end. You don't want to grow too massive, because if you do, you will landlock yourself, and then your only choice is either to shed might by losing troops, or you're screwed basically. So that's just something that I thought I'd mention, is there is that element of the game that is there. But needless to say, guys, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.